All right, we're going to get into the Chargers now. Another very fun AFC West team. Like you said at the jump, maybe a little underwhelming last year, just given the expectations we had. I feel like you might have had Herbert. Did you have Herbert QB1 or QB2 at the beginning of last year?
I had QB2 behind Josh Allen, but yeah, he was pretty consensus QB2. It was like him and Mahomes. A lot of people were debating between, and obviously Mahomes was the right pick there, and I was on the wrong side of this one. I just thought I'd get the Tyreek Hill downgrade. But yeah, now he's fallen to like QB6 or so, and I think this offense is.
We grabbed him at QB6 in one of our best balls, and I loved it.
Yes.
Loved it.
Yeah, I really like the Chargers.
We both kind of agree that there's a drop after him, right?
Yeah, in terms of like who could be that true cheat code, it was him in a tier. It was him, Burrow, and then I had like a next tier and a half with Trevor Lawrence, who I do really like. We talked about him on the AFC South show last week, but there is a drop between him and Herbert, in my opinion. Not a full.
Yeah, you would never draft Lawrence over either of those guys, but I understand. I understand why he's there.
Yes.
All right, let's get into the Chargers under new management. Talk to me about what you're looking for from these guys this year.
Yeah, Kellen Moore now man in the offense, which I think is going to have a really big impact. I hate Joe Lombardi. Thought he was a moron. One of the best arms we've seen ever in the league, and he just reined it in with little pop gun attack. It was stupid, complete mismanagement of his talent, and I do not think that will be the case with Kellen Moore. So just in terms of raw plays, before we talk about what these plays are going to look like, I do have this team running well above league average. You can look at the team level down here, and that is consistent with Staley. He likes to be aggressive. He likes to run a ton of plays. Ever since Herbert Scott here, they have been significantly above league average the past three seasons. Staley and him arrived together. So you can see 75, 71, and 84 plays above league average in the 3 seasons with Justin Herbert. Clearly a very pass-happy team there too, 64%, 62%, and 57% pass rate in that span. And then you have Kellen Moore come in who pushes the pace even further. So I expect potentially even more plays, certainly more aggressive plays. All the talk so far in these early camp has been just Herbert unleashing the deep ball more early and often, especially on those like first down plays where they catch the defense off guard. They've really been lighting it up. And I get it. It's OTAs, it's shorts. We can't just go nuts here. But the fact that it's already been noticeably felt by beat writers, by the players themselves coming out and saying, we're going to be throwing this thing deep. It's so clear this year. Keenan Allen saying, I might get the highest yards per reception of my career the way he's using me right now. So I really, really like what he's going to bring to the table. Kellen Moore, just from a sheer volume standpoint, you can see lots of plays running. He's also, so that was the Chargers history, but you can look at Kellen Moore as well. Definitely a little more balanced. But also consistently above league average of 99, 51, 55, 64 plays. In his first 3 seasons, that's when he really had the keys to this offense and was similarly around that 60% pass rate. Last year, McCarthy did take back over, not officially, but apparently, you hear some of the comments. Sounds like he really reined in Kellen Moore, saying that he fired him because he was trying to light up the scoreboard too much, throwing it too much. I want to run the ball so I can rest my defense. I don't want to be the number 1 offense in the league, unlike Kellen Moore. So I know we've said that quote many times on the show, and I get it. I guess if that's how you want to play your game, that's why you want to play your game. But I think the Chargers got a steal.
I do not get it. I'm not going to say if that's how you want to play your game. You want to play your game. If someone's an offensive coordinator and that's like the best offense in the league, generally speaking, you're happy with those results. I'm trying to remember ever hearing something so stupid in my life. He's too effective at his job.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense.
I'm not even going to give him the okay if that's what you want to do. There's no excuse for it. It's crazy.
No, I'm pretty much with you there too. I do understand the idea that if you're throwing it and scoring way too fast, your defense doesn't get a rest. I get that. But still, if the fact that Kellen Moore, he had only 3 seasons with Dak, and really only 2 of those years was he allowed to operate the offense he wanted to. First in the league in yards, second in the league in points. First in the league in yards, first in the league in points. In 2019 and 2021, those are the 2 seasons that he had Dak healthy. And the first 5 games of 2020 when Dak was healthy, he was averaging over 30 fantasy points a game. He would have been putting up the most points ever by a quarterback, by any fantasy player, going for 32 points a game. I don't know if you remember that crazy stretch in 2020 where Dak He had 44, 46, 34 points, and he had 15 in the first half against the Giants and got hurt. So it was wild.
I remember I owned him, and
Yeah.
I was riding like really high for a while. And
yes.
that was devastating for me when he got injured. And I'm sure for him too.
A little less for him, a little more for you, but I guess you both had a little bit of pain invested in Dak. But you saw firsthand then how when this offense is clicking, that this can be one of the craziest offenses in the league. And I don't think it's a stretch to say at all that Herbert is a significant 2 steps ahead of Dak in terms of just raw talent. The guy is ridiculous. So I would not be shocked at all. Maybe you call me the man of hyperbole, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if Justin Herbert pushes for the passing record this year. He has an extra game ahead of Peyton Manning, who threw for over 5,400 yards. And I have, as you can see, I'll go back to the projections and kind of scroll up. You can see I've raved about how this offense will be faster, take more deep shots and really play into Justin Herbert's strength. So I have that translating right around 5,400 yards, right aligned with that record. I don't have quite the amount of touchdowns. I think Manning threw for like 55 touchdowns that year. But honestly, I mean, it really is within that realm of possibility, given the faster pace, the better play calling, and the fact that they add Quentin Johnston, one of my favorite receivers of this class, to now have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnston. That's a top 3 trio in the entire league that could even push for number 1. So I love the weapons. I love the play calling. I love the player in Justin Herbert. As you said, going at quarterback 6 right now in round 5, you get him a few rounds after those other Josh Allen's, Jalen Hurts's, and he should go after those guys. But by 2 rounds or so, I think he could absolutely threaten to be a cheat code style quarterback that you can have 5 other talent picks ahead of him. So I think he's going to be great. I also did bump up his rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
He had 5 a couple years ago, and when he was used with Shane Steichen, and then they really reined him in as a runner, and they probably won't run him much. But if you look at his combine measurables, Scott Barrett pointed this out to me. His numbers were better than Josh Allen. So like if they ever actually wanted to use him as a Konami guy, they really could. They probably will never, and they shouldn't. When you have an arm like that, use the arm. But he can. Dak had multiple 6 touchdown plus seasons in a row under Kellen Moore. They love calling that kind of read option when they get in tight. So even if he just bumps it up from, it was 0 last year to 5, that's a significant jump here for him. So I put in a little bit of that factor as well. So clearly similar to Pat Mahomes, I think this one's going to be a very, very juicy pie, but I do think this one's going to have some weapons that are much clearer to have it distributed to, and guys that you really want. None more so than Austin Ekeler, who I again project for some monster totals. The guy scored 38 touchdowns across his last 2 seasons. That is wild scoring pace there. And I have him for once again going for 17. Step backwards, 17 touchdowns. It's crazy how good this guy is. They have talked a lot about how the running game is certainly something that they're trying to streamline, just make simpler, and how they just really didn't. The linemen are really talking about that, how they like Kellen Moore. You look at his Cowboys games. Yes, they definitely chucked it deep and had these high-flying attacks, but they had some great running games throughout that too. Yes, Pollard and Prime Zeke were good players to ride, but Austin Ekeler can certainly get it done both as a receiver and a runner too. So I do expect a little more stability, higher yards per pop for Austin Ekeler than he's had in the past, just given a more consistent, steady scheme that everybody's raving about. I just know I mentioned the line. Best line that he's going to ever play behind. Rashawn Slater, looking like the next studded left tackle, did get hurt towards bicep at week 3 last year. And so they had to kind of mix around pieces, and it just kind of faltered from there. But if you have him there, you can kick Zion Johnson, a first-round guard, back into his more natural spot, and you've got yourself maybe a top 6 line in the league. We haven't seen that ever for Justin Herbert and for Austin Ekeler. So another monster season coming for him. 1,000 on the ground, 650 through the air on 85 catches, about 17 to 20 combined touchdowns. Well worth the first-round pick that you're going to have to spend on him. He's falling right now to 8 or 9 or so in underdog, and I love it. I know it's a receiver-heavy platform, but yeah, I get him every time he's there at 9. I absolutely love it. It is low.
I can't believe he's dropping that low.
Exactly. And I keep in mind, too, if this offense does take another step forward, as I think, the fact that he scored 38 touchdowns in back-to-back years, and this offense could be even better as a whole, might mean like 20 to 25 touchdowns is a real possibility. So the fact that 17 touchdowns is honestly like his floor. It's nuts to me. I absolutely love Austin Ekeler. They made no moves really behind him. They've talked about Josh Kelly being a bit more active as a more of a thumping type of body, but he is such a significant step, like 10 steps behind Austin Ekeler as a talent that in any type of close game, I don't think they're going to Josh Kelly at all. And maybe he vultures. I probably should bump him up for a few more touchdowns because I do think he's going to kind of become a little bit of a vulture, and that's why I had Ekeler step back a bit. So maybe I give Josh Kelly like 3 touchdowns and call it a day.
Unless Eckler's getting hurt, which, I mean, there's always substantial risk at this position. We talked about this when we talked, I think when we talked running backs. This is, you have a season like that, like he had 2 years ago, and you say like, oh, there's got to be some regression. When it happens again, then you have to say, I mean, for me at least, then it's like, all right, well, now you got to prove to me why it's not going to happen a third time. Like he's a touchdown machine. Like I don't think he's going to get too many vultured.
No, exactly. I don't think so. He's so damn good, right? Exactly. Why take him out? It's an automatic 6 every time you go to him.
It's too effective.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So 17 touchdowns honestly feels like a floor to me. There is some value to Josh Kelly in the sense that, yeah, he might be a handcuff with benefits, but certainly the handcuff aspect of it. Ekeler didn't miss any time last year, so it didn't matter. But we did see 2 years ago when Ekeler missed 1 game, Justin Jackson had 30 fantasy points, was the running back 1. So it's just a matter of being that good of an offense that whoever has to step up and get the volume is going to be a pretty good play regardless. So there is some late round stab appeal to Josh Kelly, but we still don't even know. Is he going to be that compliment? Is it going to be Isaiah Spiller, the rookie they drafted last year, who really, really underwhelmed and disappointed a lot of people? We'll see. But really, you only care about Austin Ekeler out of the backfield. At receiver, much different story. 3 guys that you really have to know. So as you can see, target-wise, I distributed 16% to Austin Ekeler. That'd be a slight step back. He usually sees at 19 to 20, but I did want to account for the addition of Quentin Johnston, an absolute monster who I think is going to fit this offense perfectly. Leading the way is Keenan Allen. I know it's his age, 35 season at this point, so he's getting up there, and he's close to that cliff. But even last year, when he was in the 10 games he played, he was the wide receiver 8 in terms of fantasy points per game. He was a top 24 wide receiver, a whopping 86% of the time. He had only one quote-unquote dud, and he still put up 10 points in that dud game. So Keenan Allen was as good as ever. He just missed a little more time than we had seen in the prior years. But already he's the star of early camp. They're talking about how Keenan Allen's being used in a more of a deep ball role than he's ever been used for the last 7 years. And it's not like he can't do it. He's done that before. I kind of want to pull up real quick Keenan Allen, just kind of show you. Back in the day, he did have quite a bit higher yards per reception here. So Keenan Allen, a couple of crazy things I just wanted to point out is one, when he plays, he's always going to be targeted. Above 23% target share in all of the last seven seasons, including all of those above 25% or higher, other than last year. But he has had some vertical elements to his game: 13.6, 12.21. This is when he was a bit more of an Air Coryell offense under the Turners, and they were actually letting him get deep. That's more resembling what this scheme is. So I think a return to this type of 1,300-ish yards is very possible if he is streaking deep down the field. It's an older player, but after statting them out, I bumped him up a little bit in my rankings ahead of Debo, ahead of some other guys who I do love as well. But as like a round 3 receiver, he becomes somebody that I hadn't been getting a lot of to somebody I am looking to continue to go after regularly. I know Quentin Johnston, a big mouth to come in here, this rookie I keep alluding to. I think that's going to nibble more so at Mike Williams. But as you can see, 17 and 16% share for those guys. You're still in such a high volume attack, getting over 110 targets for those guys as well. So I do think there's plenty of room for all 3 of those guys, plus Austin Ekeler. If the pie is as big as I expect, we're talking 3 potential 1,000-yard receivers, all of them having 6 or more touchdowns here. I give a slight edge to Mike Williams just being here longer. He also has reportedly been a dominant force in early camp. Quentin Johnston, though, all the talk has also been how impressive he is getting deep down the field, but also that he's bringing this new run after the catch. He's a big body guy, but he is very, very shifty after the catch as well. So that's kind of an element that the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, and then head coach Brandon Staley saying, we didn't have that element last year. He's bringing something new. So I think all of them will be heavily involved. Obviously, the biggest hits then go to Josh Palmer, who I think is going to be useless at this point. And Gerald Everett, who, he's still okay. We saw Dalton Schultz get really good usage with Kellen Moore, but he also didn't have 3 receivers of this level of capability. So I think this will be a pretty evenly distributed, huge pie, pretty evenly distributed. All these guys have a lot of upside in it. I don't get a ton of Mike Williams just because, as you can see, I have very similar stats, 1,120 and 8 for him on 70 catches versus 72, almost 1,106 for Quentin Johnston. Johnston just goes about 5 rounds later, and I think they're going to be this close in production that where Mike Williams goes, I'd rather have Joe Mixon. I'd rather have, sometimes Najee Harris is even falling into that range. And I like Mike Williams, definitely a good best ball style guy because, 30 points one week, 0 the next. That doesn't kill you in best ball like it does in regular fantasy. So I do like him in some of these early best ball drafts, but I still think there's guys going around him that I prefer. So to me, Keenan Allen will be nice and steady, 23% or so target share. The other guys might nibble at each other a little bit, but they're both going to be great picks. I just like Quentin Johnston, who goes a little bit cheaper.
Agree. I owned
Sweet.
Mike Williams. I owned Mike Williams last year, and I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't a fun experience. It was like, he blows up every now and then. And when he does, especially when it happens early in the year, you feel really smart and it's just really fun pulling for him. But man, there was like 1 catch, 4-yard games, and nothing especially when you need him. I feel like there was a game last year where I just needed him to be okay and I would have won. And it was like a Monday night game and he was just awful.
Yep. I remember that because we did the show ahead of time. You're like, I just need like 8 from Mike Williams. I think he got like 0. That's the risk of him,
Yeah, and it just wasn't fun. I agree with you though. He's much better suited as best ball.
Yes, and this offense is really going to suit his skills too. That he is a big body that can get down the field early in offense. Definitely. So maybe he finds a little more consistency. But I agree, especially with Quentin Johnston added here too. I think it's going to be a lot of mouths, and he might be the least consistent of them. So he, at his price at least, is not a guy I'm often getting. I think Tunes brings up a really good point here. I was just checking the questions and comments, and great to see Charlie Mendelakis has exact joined. But Tunes saying, how many screen yards for Ekeler with all this deep ball talk? And I think it's a really good point. It's part of what makes that so dangerous is how much space that's going to be underneath for Austin Ekeler if these receivers are playing to the levels I think they are. All the better for him. And I also think, but you also see, so Austin Ekeler, as much damage as he did last year, he had negative 100 air yards on the year because they just swing passes behind the line of scrimmage. And I don't think that's going to be the case with Kellen Moore. We saw some great wheel routes out of Tony Pollard, him lining up in the slot, making some just great moves. So I could even see Ekeler being used more creatively and also not just screen yards, but going deep to Tunes. So, I mean, I'm just so excited for this offense as a whole, for Kellen Moore's arrival and what that could mean in terms of unlocking the true ceiling of Justin Herbert, which, as just to summarize for anybody coming in late here, I think Justin Herbert could actually break the passing record this year in terms of yards and maybe even touchdowns if he just really, really blew up. Like Dak Prescott was going to break the record for touchdowns potentially when he was healthy in 2020 and then got hurt in this Kellen Moore attack. And I think this is a better quarterback with better weapons. I just can't wait for this. I am so excited. The more I say this out, truth, the more I'm like, I wish I had been drafting more Justin Herbert. I have him obviously in the draft we did, and I've done him a few other times, but I'm going to get a lot more shares the more and more I project this offense out.
Cool. I'm looking forward to watching this team. This is definitely,
yes.
This is definitely must-see football, I would say.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.